Well, so actually, that brings me around to one of the things that I wanted to ask about. You recently published a new, revised, updated mission statement. And I'm curious, sort of, what you all think of, you know, is that going to impact the strategy? Does that change, impact either the day-to-day or the 5-year strategy?
Josh, I think you should take that one because I know you were part of those conversations.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It impacts our strategy, our planning, our vision. So the updated mission that we have, and I'll verbalize this in a moment here, was just one deliverable, one milestone in this sort of reform process that we're going through. And first we talked about our governance, like what is the role of the board, what is the role of the staff, how do we want to relate to each other? Oh, you're a saint. Thank you, Lewis.
This is the new one.
So we, first we worked through like, well, what's our relation internally? And then we started working through, okay, let's work on a new mission, because the last time we wrote a mission was 20 some odd years ago. It included a lot of language that just isn't relevant anymore. We have different challenges now. And so yeah, OSI, as the steward of the open source definition, we set the foundation for the open source software ecosystem. And there are a few notable things about that refined mission statement. First of all, there's the relationship between OSI and the open source definition. And there's a stewardship relationship there, which should be interpreted as like, OSI doesn't own the open source definition. We're the keeper of it. And because OSI is a community run organization, of, by, for the community kind of thing, the open source definition can evolve with the community, with OSI, right? We haven't defined what that would look like, what that process would look like, but there should be one should read this mission and understand that this is not not set in stone, but it is something that we need to mind and take care of. And then there's the second half, that we set the foundation for the open source software ecosystem. And that's thinking about how OSI sees itself as being a cornerstone in the ecosystem, being something that everything else can be built around and on top of. And we are not the ecosystem. That's one thing that one should be clear on this mission, is we're not conflating ourselves with the whole world and the ecosystem. We're just setting a foundation for it. But also in that, we're leaving the door open for what else might OSI do to set that foundation, because licenses are not the end all be all of open source, right? Licenses are a means to an end to deliver a certain type of collaboration and a certain type of freedom, depending on your philosophies here. And so for this helps us think about like, oh, how can OSI relate to open source in a way that isn't just strictly about licenses? Because that's the gap that we need to clear, and we need to clear that in a way that we're very intentional about. So moving forward, what does this mean is, well, now the board is in the process of setting its new vision. We've identified like, okay, here's our universe of stakeholders. Here are the stakeholders that can help us keep the lights on over the next 24 months to make sure that we're sustainable and we exist in the first place, which is not a foregone conclusion, I should say. The pandemic has been very difficult for the organization, just like many others. But now it's like, well, what's the vision? Where do we want to be in 3 years? And where do we want to be in 5 years? And I can't tell you what that is, because that's an ongoing conversation. But that's what we're doing now, is we're pulling that out, and we're coming to an agreement on what that vision is. And the aim is to have that solidified before the new executive director comes on board, because we want the person who steps into that role to be clear on where we're trying to go. And without that, I feel like we'd probably be setting them up for failure. We don't want that.